The stars dimmed slightly as the Karnak's dominion broadcast ignited across the galaxy. A regal voice, heavy with ancient pride, declared Earth a vassal world. No negotiation, no diplomacy, just an ultimatum. The message dripped with contempt. Humanity was described as a species that had accidentally weaponized fire and stumbled into space by industrial chaos, not intellect. They were called a threat only because of their unpredictability, not their capability. The Karnaks didn't fear humanity, they pitied it. And in their eyes, pity justified conquest. They demanded immediate tribute, planetary minerals, full military disarmament, orbital ship codes, and annual genetic samples. They said Earth's survival depended on obedience, not merit. To them, the galaxy was a hierarchy, and humans were beneath acknowledgement. They made this declaration not from afar but from the edge of Earth's orbit, where the king's son arrived personally, expecting submission like hundreds of worlds before. Their ships were monolithic and ceremonial, adorned with living metal and banners made from synthetic nebula cloth. The delegation touched down in a secured area of Earth's capital. Crowds had gathered, media drones filled the sky, and military satellites quietly watched from above. The Karnak's prince, draped in imperial silks, stepped from his shuttle. His first act was to place a boot on the flag of Earth and grind it into the soil. He raised a jeweled scepter and announced the beginning of civilized dominion. Earth responded with silence. There was no ambassador waiting. No welcoming party. The dignitaries were left standing alone for 3 hours while the winds rustled through empty streets and automated defense systems tracked them without firing. The prince issued another message, more threatening, less ceremonial. He declared Earth's silence to be an insult against the galactic order, a spit in the face of harmony. He demanded Earth's leaders present themselves within the hour. Instead, power was cut to the Karnak's consulate. All external communications jammed. Their ships above received no response from their crew on the ground. Humanity gave no answer, but it wasn't because they were afraid. It was because they were listening, watching, calculating. The Karnak's prince returned to his ship, furious at the perceived disrespect. Behind the scenes, Earth's command had already identified every weak point in the Karnak's fleet, tracked their language patterns, deciphered their code structure, and deployed silent assets. They didn't meet the delegation because they were busy preparing the end of it. In every major city, humans quietly took to digital war rooms. No mass mobilization. No fanfare. Just pure coordination. The world's nations, often fractured and chaotic, united with a calm efficiency that no alien species had expected from what they saw as a primitive and divided race. That assumption would be the first crack in Karnak's pride. The alien demand had not caused fear. It had caused precision. For centuries, the Karnaks had ruled through ritual and tradition. They were conquerors of style and ceremony. But Earth wasn't ceremonial, it was surgical. By the time the prince's second transmission reached orbit, his shuttle's internal data logs were already being copied and decrypted. His biometric scans were being replayed on classified screens. His speech patterns analyzed by adaptive learning systems trained on thousands of alien languages. When the prince demanded Earth's response, he thought he was facing a lesser culture. But in truth, he had spoken his challenge not to diplomats, but to engineers, strategists, hackers, psychologists, soldiers who didn't crave glory, just results. Earth didn't refuse submission. It simply never acknowledged the idea that it could be subjugated. And still, it said nothing. The silence that followed wasn't passive. It was loaded, like the click of a rifle chamber. The Karnaks had misread humanity's restraint as weakness. They didn't understand that Earth didn't posture. It prepared. And it never, ever warned twice. While the Karnak's prince looked to the stars for validation, Earth looked inward. Not because it was afraid to speak, but because it had already decided that when it did, the answer would not be spoken. It would be delivered in action. And that action had already begun. The Karnak's fleet hovered above Earth, blinded by their arrogance. They believed silence meant confusion, and that delay signaled weakness. Their sensors kept scanning, but telemetry returned scrambled results. Something subtle had shifted. Earth's skies hadn't turned red. Cities hadn't erupted. There was no noise, no fire, just a stillness that felt unnatural. Then, without warning, global blackout hit every Karnax system within Earth's atmosphere. Communications fell silent. Visual feeds turned to static. Internal sensors displayed false positives. Every attempt to reconnect failed. The artificial intelligences, previously superior to any planetary system, began displaying human code strings they couldn't interpret. In the orbital command center, the Karnax officers scrambled to recover control. But every movement they made revealed deeper penetration. Doors wouldn't open. Holograms glitched. Even gravity controls started to fluctuate. They didn't realize Earth had already taken control from within. Weeks before their arrival, satellites had mapped their technology to the molecular level. On the ground, the prince never made it back to his fleet. His transport lost its navigation mid-ascent, rerouted silently, engines cut, and drifted. It didn't crash. It landed. Controlled remotely by protocols he didn't even know existed. When his guards stepped out, they didn't find resistance. They found nothing. A blank hangar. Then the lights shut off. When recon teams were sent down to locate him, they vanished too. No firefight. No explosion. They were simply gone. The Karnax ship logs confirmed their departure. But nothing ever came back. Panic began to creep in. Not openly, Karnax pride wouldn't allow that, but in rushed commands and overlapping orders. The flagship's admiral ordered full atmospheric withdrawal. Engines wouldn't respond. Manual override was locked. Environmental controls turned cold. Air thinned. Not fatally, just enough to make breathing difficult. Just enough to induce dread. Inside the command deck, one screen finally flickered to life. It displayed Earth. Silent. Still. Then the camera zoomed in. The Karnax prince, stripped of rank and regalia, restrained upright, stood expressionless. No words came from him. Behind him, humans in black stepped forward, one after another, placing Karnax technology at his feet, torn apart, gutted, useless. The message was undeniable. Earth hadn't just taken the prince, they'd taken everything he brought with him. Language files, encryption cores, neural mapping algorithms. Every piece of Karnax's superiority now belonged to humans. Still, no message came. Just a single word burned into the transmission. Accepted. It took the fleet 20 seconds to realize what it meant. The war had begun. But it had started before they ever issued the demand. And Earth hadn't launched a single missile. Within minutes, orbiting Karnax vessels started suffering sequential failures. Not catastrophic, not immediate, methodical. Shield harmonics faltered. Engines pulsed irregularly. Bridge crews lost control of basic life support. Auto-repair bots turned inward, disassembling functioning modules. When commands were sent to shut them down, the systems refused. Refused in Karnax language. Refused using the prince's own voice patterns. Karnax Empire protocols relied on heritage authentication. Humans had mimicked it perfectly. One ship attempted to fire a warning shot into Earth's atmosphere. The weapon powered up. A hum built. Then it stopped. The energy redirected inward. A containment breach triggered silently. The explosion consumed only the weapon's bay. No debris escaped. No fragments fell. Total isolation. Elsewhere, Earth's defense platforms hadn't moved. Not one system launched into space. Not one terrestrial missile fired. Instead, high-orbit drones activated silently, previously indistinguishable from civilian satellites. They repositioned, circled, and began transmission jamming cycles across subspace layers the Karnax hadn't yet identified. By the third hour, Karnax commanders issued orders to retreat. Nothing happened. Navigation systems recalculated routes in circles. Warp drives wouldn't spool. Every attempt to contact home failed. Their own star maps now looped endlessly back to Earth's orbit. They were trapped in a gravity well they didn't understand. One final transmission attempted a diplomatic reset. A desperate plea for clarification. The message was sent, and instantly returned. Same message, but altered. On repeat, in Earth's voice, emotionless. "We don't negotiate surrender." Inside the Dominion fleet, lights dimmed. Crews sat frozen. No alarms, no klaxons. Just that phrase, echoing endlessly. Then silence. Absolute. Confusion spiraled into fear as silence settled across the Karnak's Dominion's fleet. Earth hadn't fired weapons, yet entire command systems had unraveled. Orders to realign formation resulted in unresponsive ships drifting off path. Internal AI command trees began flagging routine input as corrupted, and repair protocols failed mid-execution. Each diagnostic revealed nothing useful. Every subsystem showed perfect operation, yet nothing worked as it should. Control was an illusion, hollowed out without alert. On Karnak's border worlds, word of the prince's disappearance arrived garbled, stripped of clarity. Military channels flickered, then faded. Dominion governors tried rerouting transmissions through secondary gates. Those gates ceased to function within hours. Entire data relays collapsed. Satellite clusters simply vanished. Worlds that once received updates every few minutes went dark. Panic hadn't reached the surface yet. But inside war councils and strategic chambers, dread took root. No enemy was visible. No attack logged. Yet assets kept falling. One by one. Quietly. Without noise. Fleets vanished not in battle, but from silence. No distress signals. No last stands. Just absence. Their command structure had no framework for this kind of loss. There were no glorious deaths. No evidence to rally behind. Only disappearance. Internal agents whispered rumors. Humans had penetrated deep into the Dominion's core. Infrastructure blueprints were possibly compromised. They questioned how Earth, an uncolonized planet with no known expansion record, had accessed transdimensional jump corridors. A few dismissed it as misinformation. The rest stopped speaking altogether. Alien commanders reviewed the last secure transmission from Earth's vicinity, footage of the Karnak's prince, chained in place, unbruised, but unmoved. The silence surrounding him screamed louder than any execution. No demands. No ransoms. No conditions. The absence of communication became more terrifying than any declaration of war. Karnak's war philosophy had always relied on structure, honor, and escalation. Earth followed none of it. They didn't posture, didn't threaten, didn't provoke. They erased. Precise. Emotionless. Irregular. A scout vessel on the Dominion's frontier reported strange readings, a sudden spike of unidentified energy patterns in a dormant asteroid belt. Investigative drones were sent. Contact was lost. Minutes later, a local monitoring station replayed their final visual, dozens of human drones silently dissecting the scout ship in zero gravity. Not a single weapon fired. The hull was peeled apart like paper. The recording terminated mid-frame, the drone's memory cores purged. In a separate incident, Dominion archive worlds, presumed unreachable, detected unauthorized access to historical databases. Encrypted files from thousands of cycles ago were extracted. Security firewalls didn't even activate. The infiltration left no signature, no breach trail. But every system clock was reset to Earth's current time zone. No message followed. One admiral proposed full retraction from Earth's sector. Another countered, suggesting direct assault. The third pointed out none of them could guarantee command over their own ships anymore. Not a single captain could confirm autonomy. Any offensive attempt could end with their vessels disassembling mid-flight. Dominion morale broke first among outer colonies. Civilian transmissions intercepted from deep space relays showed Karnak's citizens beginning evacuation procedures, without official sanction. Words like unseen enemy, silent storm, and the planet that doesn't answer echoed through back-channel forums. A black market arose instantly, stolen human data fragments, low-resolution screenshots of unknown tech, intercepted Earth broadcast pulses. None provided clarity. All deepened the fear. Within 2 solar rotations, the Karnax War Council lost access to 17 of its forward operations nodes. No debris. No survivors. Just wiped logs and power failures. Their own command AI began exhibiting erratic behaviors, including looping Earth's first response. Accepted. Even systems isolated by physical firewalls echoed it. Fleet cohesion disintegrated. One cruiser turned weapons inward, detonating its core reactor. Another ejected its bridge crew into space, then drifted for hours before disabling its engines completely. The few ships that tried to escape reported being pulled off course by non-Newtonian gravitational forces, something Karnak's tech couldn't replicate, nor explain. Dominion leadership finally acknowledged it. Earth hadn't joined the war. They had defined it. And no one knew what came next. The Karnak's king, supreme sovereign of over 1,000 star systems, arrived in Earth's orbit aboard a throne ship that blotted out starlight. A symbol of absolute power, his presence alone was considered enough to end wars. For centuries, enemies surrendered before he ever spoke. Now he hovered over a planet that refused to kneel. He issued a universal declaration, accusing Earth of insurrection, dishonor, and crimes against the order of the galaxy. His voice was transmitted through every Karnax channel, layered in 12 dialects, amplified by resonance tech that once made empires tremble. But this time, his words met silence. Not silence by absence, but silence by force. His message looped back to him within seconds, distorted, voice inverted, mocked. The feed fractured, cutting to archived footage of his own son, still bound, still breathing, still unbroken. A camera panned across dissected Karnak's command terminals, now reassembled in impossible configurations, functioning under alien protocols. The prince never spoke. But the visual said enough. The king ordered a full planetary bombardment. Nothing fired. Launch systems initiated, then cancelled themselves. Chain of command dissolved. Crew logs reverted to unauthorized clearance. Commanders received orders in the king's voice that they never gave. Warships turned silently within formation, motionless but not idle. Power levels fluctuated erratically. Weapon cores cooled to stand by. Support vessels severed from the fleet without permission. Without resistance, a single wormhole formed within the heart of the king's vessel. It bypassed all defensive architecture, ignored all shielding. No alarms triggered. No breach recorded. The event lasted 7 seconds. When it closed, the king had vanished. He reappeared not on a throne, not in a prison, but among the ruins of the Karnax embassy built on Earth. Cameras activated globally. Civilian channels, military feeds, alien intelligence networks, all streamed the same footage. The king, restrained, stood under gray skies, imperial robes torn, insignias stripped. No bruises, no blood. Just exposed authority undone. He called out for counsel, demanded audience, invoked ancient rites of negotiation. None responded. There were no guards around him. Just unblinking drones capturing every twitch of his face, every tremor in his voice. Then came movement. A line of mechanized chains dragged across the fractured stone. They latched around his arms, then legs, forcing him forward. No ceremony. No trial. Just a slow, mechanical process of humiliation. He was pulled through the ashes of his envy, past wreckage that once symbolized dominion. His crown, removed earlier, was ground beneath tracked wheels. He wasn't paraded before a cheering crowd. There were no human faces. Only drones, satellites, recording devices, collecting every second, ensuring the entire galaxy witnessed. Not triumph. Not brutality. Control. Each drag across cracked pavement tore through centuries of untouchable rain. The king shouted ancestral codes, invoked bloodline privileges, screamed for protocols that once ensured his safety. Nothing activated. No protocol remained. He passed rows of Karnax banners, now burned and folded into triangles, marked, tagged, and catalogued like museum relics. Behind him, a trail of dust stretched back to the landing site where he had once arrived, convinced he'd rewrite Earth's history. No human laid a hand on him. None needed to. The technology, the environment, even the gravity around him had been weaponized. Every element reminded him that he wasn't on conquered soil, he was under judgment. As the last drone circled, capturing a full orbital angle of the king dragged in defeat, a new message was transmitted across interstellar frequencies. It wasn't an announcement, or a threat. It was metadata. Time-stamped evidence of total neutralization. The final packet contained coordinates, movement logs, intercepted Dominion orders, and AI-confirmed identifications. The Karnax Dominion received it in fragments. Half their systems couldn't interpret the compression format. The other half rejected the data out of fear. Back on Earth, the king collapsed at the base of a monolith displaying his own empire's galactic emblem, now fractured in half. He tried to speak once more, but his voice was drowned out by the sound of silence so absolute it felt engineered. Earth never issued a sentence. They delivered consequence. The Karnax king remained in full view of the galaxy, encased within a transparent stasis field. No walls. No guards. Just atmosphere-controlled exposure. Cameras rotated around him, broadcasting across every known star system. He wasn't tortured. He wasn't questioned. He was simply there, stripped of relevance, stripped of command, suspended in a state worse than death. Dominion allies waited for the execution. It never came. Earth denied him martyrdom. Systems across the outer fringe disconnected from Karnax control voluntarily. No formal declarations. They rewrote constitutions overnight, removed emblems, erased historical ties. Planets once loyal began transmitting their neutrality. Not out of respect. Out of survival. The image of a bound emperor said more than war ever could. Empires don't recover from that kind of collapse. They splinter. Rapidly. Internal Karnax channels flooded with defection requests. Commanders, governors, intelligence officers, none asked for asylum. They simply wanted to not be noticed. Files were wiped. Uniforms incinerated. Whole careers disappeared overnight. Even loyalists refrained from retaliation. Any aggressive signal risked drawing attention from a species that hadn't spoken a single word since dragging a galactic monarch across rubble. Earth's defense grid remained dormant. Not a single human fleet entered alien space. No annexation occurred. No resource extraction. No political imposition. Earth expanded nothing. It didn't need to. The message had been delivered without territory changing hands. Borders bent away from Earth automatically. Star charts were redrawn across dozens of sectors. Trade routes rerouted. Patrols redirected. Every recalculation came from fear, not diplomacy. The Galactic Council, once positioned above all interstellar conflicts, issued a formal inquiry. Their message arrived via neutral relay, layered with layers of protocol and apology. It offered no judgment, only a request for assurance that humanity did not intend to destabilize interstellar balance. Earth returned no answer. Their silence echoed louder than any threat. The council met again, this time without a quorum. Several members refused to attend, fearing association. Others suggested dissolving their existing structure entirely, as it had failed to anticipate a force that refused to play by known rules. Earth hadn't just resisted Karnax, it had removed the framework that made such conquests predictable. The galactic order hadn't been challenged. It had been made irrelevant. Intelligence networks scoured human transmissions for motives. Nothing surfaced. Earth's networks ran as usual: scientific data, environmental logs, civilian communications. No grand doctrine. No recorded celebration. Humanity didn't crown a new leader. Didn't hold rallies. It moved on as if nothing had happened. Behind closed doors, galactic species began reforming their militaries. Not to prepare for war, but to prevent misunderstanding. Protocols were rewritten to avoid even the appearance of threat toward humans. AI behavioral parameters were updated to deprioritize aggression in human-flagged sectors. Some civilizations banned the mention of Earth in public media altogether. Cultural references to it became taboo. Their archives labeled it not as a place, but as an incident. In academic circles, researchers coined new terminology: planetary finality, the classification of entities that require no diplomatic sequence. Earth became the sole entry. The implication was clear: a force that doesn't escalate, doesn't retreat, and doesn't negotiate. Only acts? Karnak's remnants scattered. The royal bloodline lost its divine status. Entire lineages went into hiding. Even their name, once etched into monuments across the stars, faded from public use. No rebellion rose to reclaim their legacy. The galaxy had no appetite for provoking whatever Earth had become. The final act came not from Earth, but from the void. A deep space probe, of unknown origin, released a silent burst, encoded with footage. It replayed every moment of the king's downfall, layered with Dominion military frequencies. No narrator. No translation. Just data, time synced to every planetary clock, forcing all receivers to align with Earth's timeline. From that moment forward, every major civilization recalibrated its time index using Earth's universal mark. No ceremony declared Earth the new center of galactic relevance. It simply became one. The species never spoke again. It didn't need to.